But as soon as she comes on, I'll push her away to the behavior class. It's right there. That's because Eric's the same problem. That's always fun. They're each like
Thank you for being here, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, September 25th, 2023. It is 4:31 p.m. and we're at the Arvin Education Center for our regular monthly scheduled board meeting of the Oldham County Board of Education. Sir?
Yes, just recommend approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, board members, any additions or subtractions from the agenda or questions? Okay, motion to approve. Made by Mrs. Clem, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor, and that's 5-0. Next, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And Miss Jen Crace, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please, ma'am?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I see a lot of people in red, including all of us up here tonight, or this afternoon, and saw the board post with all of the kids that were in red at our schools today. And at this point in time, we are going to take a moment of silence in memory of Jake Luxemburger. Today would have been his 11th birthday, and he was tragically killed last weekend. And we just want his family and Kenwood and all of our community to know that they're in our thoughts and prayers. So we are going to take a moment of silence for Jake. And we will continue to keep his mom and dad and sister in our thoughts and prayers, and his grandparents as well. Okay. Sir?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to invite Dr. Smith to come forward and share as we prepare for our instructional session about early release day and authentic learning.
Good afternoon. So this year we have started using some of our release time in a new and creative way, phasing out some of our teacher work days and introducing early release days as a chance for students to engage at school in a new way, and also to give teachers time at the end of the day to do some planning and collaborating together. Anyone who was on social media on our first early release day was flooded with images of students engaged in hands-on projects and authentic learning. And also there was some foreshadowing to what's coming on our next early release day, which will be this Friday, the end of the week. We've invited a couple of principals to come up and talk about what the early release day looked like on their campus, and also to share what we've learned and how they're changing and adjusting their plans for what early release day will turn into this coming Friday. So if I could have our principals who are presenting come on up. I'm going to step back and they're going to take us through some slides, show some videos, and also talk about what early release day looked like on their campus and how they engage their school community. Krista?
Sure. Good afternoon. I said good morning when I came in earlier. I was like, oh, I was just discombobulated. Happy to share, Ms. Jane, if you can advance the slide for me, please. Just a little bit about what we did at Centerfield. We took a dive into deeper learning, and when we talked about it as a staff, the best way to remember what deeper learning is just, it's the learning that sticks. It's the stuff you're going to remember when you're 20 years old, when you're 40 years old, you're going to tell your kids about that one time when I learned fill in the blank. And so our teachers were really excited to have the chance to kind of have a different schedule for the day, to open up some time and space to be able to do something different. And a lot of times in elementary school, you know, we think we have to do math, we have to do reading, we have to do phonics, we have to do all of the things every single day. And so it's hard for them to think creatively about the schedule sometimes. So the schedule of early release day was a gift and it came at the right time. And we have a little video to show you about all the different projects the grade levels did. In addition to that, the learning that sticks, we also wanted to focus on developing our learner competencies as it relates to deeper learning. So the 6 squares here, I think you've been shown this graphic before, but we focused especially on working collaboratively, and that was really important to us based on our student data. That's our fun video that we're going to see. But that answering that question of really like, what does it take to be able to work together with other people? And a lot of that is accepting that we're all different, and what is different about us is what makes being able to work together great, because you can use each other's strengths. So let's watch this great video that just shows the deeper learning dive that each grade level did at Centerfield. You see the 3 little pigs? They huffed and they puffed and they blew the house down. It was beautiful weather, so we got to get outside. Surprised the kids with being able to be archaeologists for the day in 2nd grade. Jazzy music. So you can see from that video, every grade level really just took on a project that helped them take students deeper in their learning. And it was related to the curriculum units that they're in right now. So it wasn't just a novel thing for the day, it was connected to what they were doing. And you saw there's a variety, you know, some science, some math, some literacy. And my other video is just a plug, we're not gonna watch it today, but just a plug for our Monday Math Minute. On this special day, the 1st graders that we're working on Counting On, they took over the Math Minute that is typically hosted by one of our math teachers, and it's just really fun. So look for that on our social media. There's a Monday Math Minute every week to help our families understand what their kids are learning about in school and math, you know, this new math that we have. So it's a little bit about what happened at Centerfield.
Thank you.
Well, I apologize for not having a video. We were a little busy this week, but our Tigers at our last early release day spent the time with their grade levels with the push on what does it mean to be a Tiger. And we really learned about community, and we talked about taking that community outside of our classrooms, into our grade levels, outside of our into our school building, to help our cafeteria staff, help our custodial staff, help other people in our building. And now we're beginning to push that again even more during this next early release day. And I think our Tigers really got to see what community looked like this week. So I think that was an added blessing for us. But one of the things I wanted to talk about was our fourth graders have paired up with our kindergartners. So they have decided that they are going to be early release day partners for the rest of the school year with our kindergartners. So they spent the first early release day planning what those days would look like, and then they're going to rotate because there's 4 fourth grade classes and 4 kindergarten classes. So over the next 4 early release days, they're going to have different activities where they are going to partner with them doing book partners and game partners and learning about our Tiger Trait partners and all sorts of activities where they can see that. So we have all sorts of activities like that about what it means to be a Tiger in a community, but that's just one example.
Thanks, Jen.
All right, so this slide is from North Middle, and we focused our day for early release day as a deeper learning immersion. So the entire day was focused on deeper learning activities that connect to those qualities that we want all of our students to have. We want them to be strong communicators, effective with how they communicate with each other, collaborative, be able to solve problems, be self-directed in their learning. And so what we did is we created opportunities for every student across our building through every period to be doing the same activities. We came up with the theme, Words Have Power, because our students told us last year through the Studer survey that that's an issue for our kids. They're middle schoolers, and they understand that and they need probably a greater understanding at times that what they say has power to others. And so throughout our school, the first period was spent dwelling on what are some words that have power in our lives? What are some words that we hear that are both positive or negative in our lives? The second period was all about reflecting on those words. And we did a great activity where students were able to take steps forward if those words had been spoken to them, take steps backwards if they had been spoken to them and they took them in a negative way, and the impact of that. And it was just such a raw and important conversation our teachers were able to have with our students. And then we were able to reach out to stakeholders, including Ms. Sheffer was one of our stakeholders that participated in submitting videos telling our students how words have had power in their lives. And so we had everyone from a military organization that supports veterans, all the way to Ms. Sheffer and other members of our school board, to a district court judge who submitted videos for our students to watch about how words have power. And then with those videos, our students crafted questions where they would like to know more from these individuals. And so we pulled all of our students together by houses into our auditorium, and they were able to ask those questions of our panel. And it was just so powerful. The questions they had, the voice of our students through that process was just really powerful. We finished the day with a house challenge, family lunch period, and then finally every student created a product that demonstrated their learning for the day. Now, it was a wonderful day. We did spend the entire day in this immersion, and it was so important so we have common vocabulary among all of our students moving forward. What did we learn? We learned that our next early release day, we're going to spread the wealth a little bit out, just a little. This was very intense planning on the part of our admin team. So what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to tailor a lunch block all around our deeper learning immersion activity. So we will have our typical core classes, but we will also have this as a feature of early release day. So we did learn a few things. We're shifting our schedule moving forward, but it's just been powerful. And the fact that we will have common dialogue, common language around how words have power, but also around the deeper learning competencies will be impactful for our school year for months and years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Brown?
Okay, so at the high school level, if I'm honest, we were a little bit concerned about the engagement level of students. We didn't know if we could get them excited about something that's different. We were so pleasantly surprised with the turnout. What we focused on, we call it our challenge to change. And so we dug in, we had the students dig in on the student survey results. And what they did is they figured out, they looked at the students, what is it about their school that was the lowest? What did they think that they could affect change on in their advisory groups together to improve their school and make it feel more like their school? The kids had to submit a proposal. They had to learn how to work together in teams, how to collaborate. They got feedback from our admin staff on their different project ideas. And there was such an array of different activities. We were thoroughly impressed. I can't even tell you. The teachers were excited. It was a really exciting day, and we were so lucky to have so many volunteers from the community come in and be part of that work with us. I encourage you guys to see some of that work because it was an incredible day. I think the best way to really convey what we did is to show a quick video. So we've got that.
I'm in ninth grade at Oldham County High School and Miss Stone's advisory. In advisory, we've been working on our Challenge to Change product, and we analyzed student data from last year to see what we wanted to do to help make our school better. Each advisory had to do this, and once they figured out what they wanted to do, we had to submit a proposal to a plan and get it approved. Once it got approved, we started working together as a team. In the very beginning, we weren't too sure how to feel about Challenge to Change, but on early release day, when we put our plan to action, our excitement changed and our perspective of it looked different.
As a community here at Oldham County High School, Dr. Brown gave us the task of researching data from the student survey last year on what we could do to change the school. As a class, we chose to do a talent show to really recognize the differences in what makes us unique in our community.
My name is Dax, and our early release day project was given that it meant something to us. This is the reason I've been putting it in gold green staff actually national services. It was a great role model, coach, teacher, and he's opening a school professional.
Thank you. We're very proud. Thanks for letting us share.
Thank you. Which one of you wants to go next?
So I'm going to front load this with, I'm not going to talk a lot until, no, I won't talk a lot either, but at the end. So what we want to share with you is really what the day looked like through the lens of our students. Our community needs to know their experience as well as you all. So I want you to know in this video, everything is student created. So I'm going to let you see and then I'll come back. Yes, click the center.
respect.
Teachers.
Be involved in the community and have fun.
Responsible, respectful, and kind.
Be part of the community. Be respectful. Be a leader. To work hard.
Independent, academically smart,
Being a hard worker, that's honestly it.
It means to have respect.
I think that it means to have motivation, show school spirit.
To be hardworking and good at girls soccer.
You gotta be respectful, you gotta have empathy, and you gotta be independent.
To have leadership.
I think it means to be authentic and yourself.
Perseverance and good behavior.
I think it means putting in work to achieve your goals.
Participating in extracurriculars and having fun. Being a driver is all about being passionate.
I think it means teamwork and leadership.
This is what it means to be.
Sound is better together.
So you can see, the authentic smiles that were on their face told the story of the day. It was powerful in getting ready and giving the platform of deeper learning, but through the lens of what it means to be a dragon and being able to explore that. We're thrilled for our next couple of early release days. We've kind of got them planned out. Kind of a rough sketch, but as one of the other principals said, it is a lot. Admin worked really, really hard, but you can see the fruits of our labor, and we're super pumped. So I hope that you enjoyed that. Do you have the last slide? If you all look at it later, but the 4 last questions are going to be the guiding questions so you started with what it means to be a dragon, and now we're really going to start focusing in on the classes because they're doing these projects in their homerooms, which is building capacity because those homeroom teachers will follow them all 4 years, and really building lasting relationships. So we start having Monday morning meetings and also Dragon Family Fridays to pair this with those early release days. So we've been given a phenomenal opportunity, and we're excited, and good stuff coming from it, so I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you. Last but not least, Austin.
Tough act to follow. So tell you a little bit briefly about what we did with our first early release day. So we kind of started small, and we looked at several data points, much like Allison, who spoke from North Middle. We've had a lot of student feedback over the years. I guess if we were to say something that's good, students are very open about how much they love their teachers, how much they love, the classes that they're in. But when it comes down to how they talk about each other and the feedback they give on how nice they are and respectful they are to one another is usually where we score very, very low. And we've seen that on the Studer survey. We've seen that for the last 2 years on our KSA spring testing data survey that the students have to take. And then in some feedback sessions we did at the beginning of the year with our students and groups of students, that was validated yet again. So we started really small, and we wanted this to be kind of a project that extended throughout the year, that our kids were the driving forces, because we've been responsive to that data in the past, but the reality is it's been the adults in the building that have really tried to come up with systems that promote students being respectful to each other. And I'd say at best we've probably had limited success. So this year we really wanted to have the initiative of, hey, let's let the students solve this. Since this is something the students are saying really needs to improve about our school, let's let them be the drivers and solve this. So we started really small, looking at those data points, having conversations in their South Strong classes, basically came up with the question, or the challenge, if you will, the problem of practice of how do we make all students feel like they are valued and respected. So as we go into ERD Day 2 on Monday, we're going to extend that out, make that a much bigger initiative, and to be honest with you, we don't know where this is going, but that's kind of the point. We want to see where the kids take this. So as you can see up there, we've got 4 questions, basically 4 mini lessons that our students are going to do early on early release day on Friday. One of those is, where is the line between teasing and bullying? Some of the things that came out of ERD Day 1 is our kids really don't know the difference in that. And then looking at some of our behavior data too, it shows that. The second one, maybe my favorite, is how, as a social studies teacher, how can I respectfully engage in dialogue without debating? A lot of times our kids in middle school want to get into a discussion with somebody and they want to win. They're not worried about hearing the other person. They just want to win at all cost. So really like that one. Then how can I analyze data to form my own conclusions? And then lastly, how have other schools addressed this problem? And then after they do that work in the morning, starting around lunchtime and for the remainder of the day, they're going to be in their South Strong groups and teams, and they're going to basically look at how are they going to design and implement a plan to address this problem of practice. So they're going to actually start to put teeth to this work and to this information and what that looks like over the course of the year. Now, I have no idea what ERD Day 3 is going to look like. It's really going to be dependent on what the students do with this on Friday. Where we have seen the challenge is students are not used to that. Talking about that from a whole school perspective. A lot of the teams were talking on ERD Day 1 when they found out, hey, this is all in our lab now. Oh, well, that's not really a problem. We don't really have anything we need to worry about here. They struggle with that, right? Because so many times in schools, we as adults kind of give them the path. Right now, we have no path. We're letting the students determine that. We've seen some great ideas come out of the students. We think as they get more comfortable with this productive struggle, they're going to come up with some even better things. And what's really cool is as kids went home and talked about this, and we've sent some information home, I had 3 or 4 parents come to our last site-based meeting that said, hey, we've got an idea of something we can do at a parent level, and even bringing together like a community kind of parent committee to talk to us about how this looks not only in our school but also in our community too. So that's where we're going to go day 2. We'll see what the kids come up with it, and that will kind of guide us into where we take this for day 3. So we're pretty excited about what our kids are going to bring to our school, and we're going to just let them run with it. So thanks for letting us share.
Thank you, Austin.
So as you can see, through the board's leadership, creating early release days, we've allowed the creativity of our principals and our students and teachers to thrive in our district. Did you have any questions on the structure of early release day or what's coming next?
Board members,
Ms. Brown?
can you talk into your microphone?
I had a question from a bunch of parents. They asked about the cleaning and painting. Can their kids opt out of it if you do that again? Is it all teacher ran, or I mean not teacher ran, student ran?
We can certainly discuss options, but our kids were arranged by advisory group, and the students collectively decided what they were going to do. We didn't impose our will, like you will clean the school. That's what they wanted to do. One of the lower indicator results from the student survey is that my school is clean. We got kind of a low score on that, and so a lot of them felt good about and opted into the cleaning.
All right.
Again, it's their choice.
I need to say that in the microphone.
So I told them I'd ask.
Should I say that in the microphone for
Yeah.
the video? So the question was, can students opt out of cleaning? And what Dr. Brown was sharing is that advisory groups selected the projects that they were interested in participating in, but should a student or a family want to opt out, that's something they can talk with the school's administrative team about.
Board members, anything else?
All right.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you all for your hard work on putting together the first early release day.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, next,
Right.
sir.
Yes, thanks, everyone. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Shelton to come forward and share the treasurer's report.
Good evening. I'd like to start off with just sharing the normal treasurer's report, but I wanted to mention a couple of things to you first. One, immediately following the treasurer's report in your packet of material is the fiscal year 23 ending reports for the school food service. Mr. Dennis had requested these, and so there's a copy of that following year report for your reference, and if you have any questions on those, we can certainly answer those. And then I know a little bit later you'll be considering the annual working budget, and I just wanted to share with you that that working budget is the tentative working budget that you previously approved in May, adjusted for the tax rates that you just set, which, as a reminder to everyone in the community, they were the same tax rates we had in the previous year that we maintained for this current fiscal year. So it was just adjusting our revenues accordingly for those. So I know you'll have that a little later, but I just wanted to mention that. This particular report has not been adjusted for those because until you approve that working budget, I didn't want to change the monthly report to reflect that. So it's a little bit different from when you look at the budget column, as you would see in the working budget report. So what I would share with you, as I've mentioned before, we're in the first quarter of our fiscal year. And this is, for any school district, it's the time of year that we have the lowest cash flow. It's July, August, and September is we don't have hardly any receipts coming in because the bulk of our receipts will start in the fall. Some as early as October. Most of those will be in November, December, and January from our tax revenues. So the first thing I'd point out to you is that when you look at disbursements and you see we only had $8.6 million in receipts, but $14.4 million in disbursements. That's, of course, because we started school in the month of August and we started paying everyone in the month of August. So the ending balance, as you see there, of our funds are $53.1 million. When you add that along with our bonded construction funds and our investments, you have the total amount of cash and funds. Is per normal procedure, we have the reports that break that down by individual fund that follow the first report. I would point out to you in particular report number 2 that's indicated in your package that shows the individual funds and those particular balances to come back to our total cash balance of $42.4 million. When you look at our next report, which is report number 3, the historical actual comparison report, again, revenues are down as they normally are at the first quarter of the fiscal year. We are starting to pick up in our expenses, and you'll see that trend change here over the next few months, as I mentioned. We do get the first allocations of capital outlay funds and building funds in the fall, and then we'll get an additional allocation from those from the state in the spring, and those are referenced at the bottom. I've attached all of the other reports and comparison and analysis for you, and have answered any questions you've had so far. Do you have any additional questions on the Treasurer's report?
Dr. Shelton, can I ask you a question real
Sure.
quick? I know that, different people pay taxes on vehicles at different times of the year, depending on your birthday or if you have specialty plates.
Right.
Do we get those checks monthly, or do they hold on to that and not give it to us until one lump sum?
We get them monthly.
We do, okay.
Yeah, the receipts that we generally receive monthly in our taxes are both our motor vehicles taxes and our utilities taxes. Utility taxes, of course, are those 3% taxes that are on all of your utility bills and your cell phone bills, et cetera. And then, as you mentioned, motor vehicle taxes, which are paid to the county clerk, which are based on birth months. And those are received throughout the year. But by far, the largest portion of our revenue is from real property and personal property taxes that we get in November, December, and January.
Thank you. Board members, did you have other questions? Okay.
Next, I'd like to invite Ms. Kelly Mersick from Baird Financial to come share an update on our restricted funds to the board and join Dr. Shelton.
Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for having us here. Slides, I guess, will be, would I move them? Are they? Oh, So thanks for having us. I'm skipping ahead. Sorry, need we backtrack? Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Happens to me too.
That's why I have my husband. He's head of IT at our house. Thank you all so much for having us. Most of my conversation with school districts about bonding capacity really hinges on, can you do an HVAC project or do a roof project? It's like, if we get the roof done this year, maybe next year we'll get to tackle this. That's a different conversation for you guys. You will have a very healthy amount of capacity. Bonding capacity came out, your bonding capacity calculation came out of CARA. So there are certain funds that we have to use for debt service or to pay for capital projects. So in the next couple of slides, we'll go through what your existing debt looks like and then those restricted funds that have to be used for bonding capacity. Can you move us? Let me get this right now. So first, like I said, we'll talk about your existing debt. So here is a summary of all your existing bond issues. So you have 12 bond issues outstanding. In the second column, that's the purpose tied to each bond issue that you have. And if there was a refinancing, so refinancing issues are simply like a mortgage where you saw an opportunity to lower your interest rate. The original project is in the footnote. So right now, there's about 128, roughly 127 million of principal outstanding. All of these bond issues are fixed rate. So when we hear the feds raising interest rates, that does not impact your debt service. All of your rates are fixed. The rates range from 1 to 5%. To give you all some context right now, if a Kentucky school district were to issue debt, the borrowing rate would be around 4.5%. So you can see most of your debt is what I would say beating the current market rates. And we hear 4.5% and we think, okay, is that a high rate? It's actually below the average. So we've got a custom about 10 years where rates were 2 to 3%. That was unusual for history, so we're getting back to more of that normal time frame. This past week, the Fed met and they did not raise short-term rates. But in their meeting, one of the comments was they anticipate to keep rates longer higher. So that's something to consider. There was thought that they would likely start cutting rates next year, but the likelihood is that they will keep them where they're at. They meet one more time this year, October 30th and November 1st. They've indicated that they likely will raise rates, short-term rates, one more time this year before the end of the year. Also on this page is what's called the first optional redemption or prepayment date. So like a mortgage, if you see rates lower at any point, typically mortgages offer a prepayment at no penalty. Municipal bonds is what you all sell to fund your capital projects, are sold with what's called a redemption feature. Investors need a guaranteed amount of time that you promise to pay the interest on those. Typically, it's 7 to 8 years. So you can see your top two bond issues or 2012 issues. Those are what are called non-callable. The third bond issue is a 2013, and our team has been monitoring that for quite a while as a refinancing opportunity. It's relatively small, and as I mentioned, rates right now are about 4%. So when you factor in the cost of refinancing, that does not make sense to our team. We like to see a refinancing provide some kind of budget benefit versus just doing a refinancing that doesn't have any kind of budgetary impact. The other thing that Dr. Shelton mentioned was cash flow period. So in the second to last column is payment dates. It's really important when you're taking on new debt to think about when is your low point for cash flow. So adding a principal payment on November 1st might not be the best time to add. So our team likes to track where you pay most of your principal and interest payments when we talk about putting in new debt service payments. And please feel free to stop me at any time if any clarification. So the next page is just the existing debt payments you have for all your existing bond issues. As I mentioned, 2 of your 2012 issues you will be paying off this fiscal year. And you can see the other bond issues. Municipal bonds are a little different than just a normal mortgage payment. You pay usually the same payment every year. But with municipal debt, we have the ability to accelerate principal or defer principal. And we really focus what your debt service payments are in the aggregate. And so our team has denoted the gold line as kind of a pressure point that we have to be mindful of. When you take on debt service, you want to make sure that you're not pushing out principal too much, that you're incurring unnecessary interest expense, but that you're not bringing forward too much principal, you're restricting your restricting your capacity for future. So our team is very cognizant of what principle we put forward. You all are different in the fact that you can pay off debt much faster than your peers. We've got some analysis later on that we'll talk about. Most districts have to talk about extending debt versus you all are optimally able to pay debt quicker and have a lower resulting bonding capacity. But you all have plenty of capacity for future projects while minimizing your interest expense to your taxpayers. This is just shown in another format. Instead of the numbers, this is the graphical representation. So fiscal year 24, you have what I would call your high water mark debt service of about $17.3 million. And then you can see from fiscal year 25 to 28, it's around $15 million, and then drops significantly. So when our team talks about adding in debt service, we're really going to take advantage of pulling up that principal in fiscal year 2029 where you have a lot of free space. That's with working, you have a great leadership team that really wants to build out that 5-year plan to see what we can do over the next few years, saving interest expense while paying off debt service as quickly as possible. So as I mentioned earlier, the 2013 is the refinancing our team has been watching for about a year now. The first column, it's called the total prior debt service. That's the existing debt service payments. So if paid as scheduled, this bond issue will cost $7.2 million of principal and interest. Based on today's borrowing rates, if you were to refinance it, you can see that the refunding debt service is essentially the same or slightly higher. So there's negative savings of about $55,000 for this issue. And the bottom, we have some sensitivity analysis in the green bar chart that highlights what if interest rates move. We have a sophisticated software that tracks, well, you said, what if interest rates go down by 1%, what happens? So that's what's presented below. Typically, the Kentucky Department of Education and the School Facilities Construction Commission do not like you all to pursue refinancings that do not produce 4 to 5% PV savings. So that would be that later scenario that we see rates go back to 3% or lower would be when they would look to do the refinancing. At the best, so if, like I said today, the rate on this refinancing is about 3.8% based on current market rates. If rates drop to 2.8%, the annual savings would only be about $30,000 a year. So we would be more recommending to look to prepay that, work with this SFCC or KDE to see if you can save the interest expense. We did this with Warren County Schools last year. They prepaid $3 million of principal and saved $500,000. They had some extra money left over in their building fund at the end of the year. That's what that money's used for, is to pay debt service or pay for capital projects, and they prepaid the issue. So we would recommend working to see if that's an opportunity versus refinancing it. But we'll continue to watch it as interest rates move. Then the next section is really going to dive into the restricted funds and what's available for bonding capacity. So CARA came about in 1990, and as in CARA, they really defined how school funding worked. So this is our representation to talk about high level, the funding sources that school districts have for bonding capacity or to fund your unrestricted. So obviously, like Dr. Shelton said, you all levy a tax, so there's money from the local taxpayer, but there's also money from the Commonwealth in the form of SEEK funds. CARA required all school districts to set a minimum tax rate, and of that tax rate, to participate in SEEK and to receive offers from the state, you had to put 1 nickel, that nickel term 5 cents per $100 of that tax, to a restricted fund bucket for building purposes. The capital outlay fund is also a restricted fund bucket. The SFCC is the school facilities construction. That also came out of CARA. That's meant to help as far as a need component. So every biennium, they take all the school districts in the Commonwealth, they ask what is on their facility plan, and they ask what can you afford, and they come up with an unmet need piece. So right now, the last number was about $7 billion. Interestingly enough, on your facility plan, you probably see the costs, which are much lower than that number. So that unmet need number is probably much higher than $7 billion because, as we know, facility costs are much higher. But every biennium, they make an offer of assistance based on your pro rata share of unmet needs. So they take your individual facility plan, what you can afford, and come up with your offer of assistance. You guys haven't received an offer since 2016 because compared to most school districts, you have quite a bit of resources to utilize. But when we do bonding capacity, we take what's in your building fund, capital outlay fund, and then any offers you have available for bonding capacity. So just diving into every dollar in Kentucky has a purpose. Of your tax rate, the lion's share.
Kelly, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes.
Of your other school district clients that you have, how many others don't get offers of assistance either?
Warren County didn't get one last year. Davis County rejected theirs because it was very small. It's the areas you would think that have a high, tax base and resources compared to the rest of the state.
Okay.
I'd say less than 10 don't get offers.
Okay, thank you.
Regularly. Your next offer will come in January, so then you'll know your next offer. But it's pretty common for the select few. So on the next slide, on page 9, as mentioned, every dollar has a purpose in Kentucky. So unrestricted dollars, we look at that as your general fund. So typically that's what you focus on as to operate this school district, pay salaries, utilities. Typically, school districts do not utilize general fund to pay debt service. If you choose to, in the past, before House Bill 678, you had to ask KDE's approval to use any of general fund money to pay debt service. Restricted funds are the money that go to capital outlay and building fund, and that's solely what we focus on for bonding capacity. The money to the building fund has two components. It has some from your local tax base, but then you also get some money from the state as part of CARE, and we'll talk about how that calculation works in the next piece. This is just a sample tax bill. Someone at your local PBA, your office was kind enough to give me a blacked out tax bill, but so right now you all lead the Commonwealth in your commitment to the building fund. There's a handful of school districts that commit the 4 nickels. You all have done that since 2003, and that really should be commended because facilities are vital to the school system. You can see the lion's share goes to your general fund, but right now you all have 20 cents per $100 of your tax rate that are committed to building fund. And finally, the state has actually recognized that 4th nickel, which has really helped you all unlock a significant amount of bonding capacity. So on the next slide, the funding in Kentucky is based on a size, wealth, and need component of what you get to your building fund and capital outlay fund. The capital outlay is money from the state. It's $100 per ADA. It has been the same, believe it or not, since 1954. And as you all hear ADA, typically attendance fluctuates through the year. So KDE advises us when we calculate your bonding capacity to only assume that 80% of that capital outlay funds are available for debt service. That's how when they look at your bonding capacity for unmet need, they're assuming 80% is available for your debt service payment. Like we talked about, you all have 4 local nickels. That's based on your wealth, 5 cents per $100 of your assessment. The state now finally kicked in. They're now giving you 4 equalizations. Equalizations is not a dollar for dollar match. How equalization works is every biennium at the beginning of year when they're doing the budget, they take the entire Commonwealth's assessment and they take the ADA and they come up with an average. And in part of CARA, they wanted to fund that at 150%. And they come out with what $1 per ADA they want to go to the building fund. Right now, they want $508 per ADA to go to the building fund. So for example, if you have a district with 2,000 students in each one, the district with 2,000 students might have a 0 tax base. They're still going to get $508. It's just going to all come from the state. Versus the other district who has kind of a split, they might be 50-50 where half comes from their local tax base, but the state's going to kick in the difference. Right now in the Commonwealth, there's about 6 districts that do not receive equalization, that their assessment are above that state average at 150%. Fayette, Anchorage, Jefferson, Lyon, and Livingston because of the lakefront property. I think Campbell's another one, but it varies every biennium when they reset that state equalization number.
But not us, correct?
You receive equalization.
Okay.
And in a healthy amount, but obviously your local commitment is much high. It's multiple times what the state kick-in is. And then we talked about the SFCC offers. One of the most important things with SFCC offers is when the SFCC gives you money, it's a 20-year commitment for debt service. They have free money always comes with strings. They limit their use of their offer on priority 1 or 2 projects. So they want to see main educational buildings. If you need to address a roof on a school, they're not going to help with athletics or extending a bus garage or what have you. But those offers, and they also have expirations. So you have a couple offers coming up, one of which will expire in January of next year. And then your 2016, it will expire in January of 2026.
And Kelly, priority 1 and 2, that's based off of your planning.
Your district facility plan.
Right.
And priority 1 is what you anticipate to do in the next biennium and then the following biennium after that.
Right.
Kelly, I have a question. Can you explain what happens to that equalization if we were to not use those nickels for the restricted funds?
If you no longer commit 4 nickels, you would lose that additional equalization.
Thank you.
Till 2040, correct?
If you stopped putting 4 nickels in your building fund, you would no longer get 4 state matches.
Right. When's that expire, though?
All 4 of your nickels are in perpetuity. The 4th equalization right now has been, in the last budget now, has been through 2042, is what they've said.
2042 is when it...
So when the cycle before, they started gradually in your equalization. At first, they promised 25%, and this current cycle we're in now, you're fully equalized. The General Assembly, to keep people moving, have said, we're going to give it to you, but we put a time limit that you will get it till 2042. So there is that push to get projects moving while you still have that additional revenue.
So basically, it's with our 4 nickels and the equalization, we're at about 24 million till 2042 per year.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yep. And then it drops off just $1 million, right now based on $1.3 million. So it's right 23 million after when that one equalization drops off.
All right.
And yeah. Next slide is just a representation of how the numbers shake out. So you have a very, very healthy assessment, an assessment of a little over $9 billion. The prior year ADA, that's what funding's based on. That's what's so important. Your funding's always based on the prior year, so you're always hoping that that continues to grow. So your prior ADA number as of this report was a little over 11,500. And right now, as I mentioned, FSPK wants $500 per ADA. So the capital outlay, $100 per ADA, so they put over 1.1 million in that fund. But when I calculate bonding capacity, I only use 80% of that. So there's $920,000 available for capital outlay fund. You have 4 local nickels, 5 cents times your $9 billion tax base. Each nickel puts in about 4.5 million. And right now, based on that state equalization, they're going to kick in 1.3 million to get you up to that 100%, 150% average per equalization. So in total, you have about 24.3 million of revenue available for restricted revenue available for debt service. You have 2 offers. The 2014 is about $35,000, and the 2016 is $5,000. As I mentioned, those have finite lives, but they are available for priority 1 or 2 projects. So when you add that in, there's a little over 24.35 million, available for debt service. Yes, so we just finished out an odd year right now, June 30th of odd year. If you have money left in your building or capital outlay fund at the end of the year to accept those offers, the offers are made in even years, but they look at your odd year financials. So they're going to take your audit on, the SFCC is going to receive their balances as of June 30th, 23. And if you have money left in your building fund or capital outlay fund, when they make their offers, they said, let's say you had $1 million left in your building fund. And they said, we're going to give you an offer for $20,000, but you've got to move that $1 million into a restricted escrow account that you can now only use for a priority 1 or 2 project. So when you accept, that's a caveat to accept that offer. So they'll pay $20,000 for 20 years on a debt service, but you've got to now take that $1 million out of whatever you choose to, your building purposes, if you want to address athletics, facility, resurfacing of parking lots, what have you, that no longer would be available when you restrict it to the SFCC. They consider it their money at that point, and that they have a say in the game on it.
Do we have a lot left over?
Which is pretty common, and their nominal offers to restrict healthy balances is.
But those offers ain't guaranteed, correct? Isn't that what you said earlier? The offers are not guaranteed till they're accepted.
I mean, they're not, if you, so they send you a letter the first week of January, and your board votes to accept it. It's been funded in the previous budget cycle. So if they tell you an offer, you have $20,000, that offer, and you accept it, it's guaranteed. And I'm sorry if I misspoke, but that, it is offered. It's funded the previous budget, and they make it to you all. You can use it this January. If you get an offer in January 24, you can use that towards debt service as early as July of 24, your fiscal year 25.
So how many requests do we have out, Tom, for offers coming up?
Well, we have 2 current SSCC offers. One will expire in January. That we'll be giving additional offers coming January, maybe. It depends on the state, when they accumulate the entire state.
So how much is the one in January?
Roughly 35,000. The one that expires is roughly 35,000.
And then they would tell us how we could spend the 16 million that we would have.
I'm sorry, 37,000. I mislooked. 37,500.
The other offer, which is less than $7,000, we had to escrow over $1 million to get $7,000, which made absolutely no sense to tie up $1 million of our money to get $7,000 there.
Did I see correctly, is the Buckner Alternative School, is that going to be one of these offers? Or are we planning on it? All right.
So the SFCC doesn't tie your offers. There's other offers that are like in special budget where you might say, we have this building and you ask for certain funding, but the SFCC offers we're talking about are just general offers where they're looking at what your unmet need is. And it's at your all's discretion to choose the project. Now, for example, the tornadoes in Western Kentucky, some schools had some damage. A group of districts went together and asked in this past budget to help us fix this elementary school, and that's more of the specific offers, but those flow through the SFCC office as well. But the offers we're talking about are just offers made to you all to use at your discretion on the priority 1 or 2 projects.
Thank you.
One caveat about money getting out of the building fund and capital outlay fund, it's called the capital funds request, and I think Dr. Shelton's got one for later on to discuss. Capital funds requests came about after the 2008-9 timeframe. School districts had very tight, post the credit crisis, very tight general funds, but very hefty balances in building fund and capital outlay fund. So they allowed school districts to utilize that restricted money, but they said you have a few things you can use it on. We're still related to capital purchases. You can use buses, you can purchase buses, pay for your bus payments. Some school districts use a KISTA program to pay for buses. You can address maintenance issues, If you were gonna do a parking lot from here and you were paying it out of your general fund and you said, well, I've got building fund money, I can use that. You can also pay for technology or property insurance. So there's no, they still stick to that caveat of what they can be used for. A few years back, the Kentucky Department of Education wanted to get school districts, because a lot of districts got reliant on using that money. And so they came up with the idea of, let's take a 3-year average, and that's the max you can take a capital funds request. Well, most school districts don't worry about doing a capital funds request on an even year because that money is not subject to that SFCC restriction on an even year, fiscal year. And so if they did 0 1 year, when you have 0 and a 3-year average, they couldn't do, so that quickly went away. But that's always an option. If KDE gets away from that, they're no longer would be able to you do a capital funds request and move that money. But right now it's unavailable and it's budget by budget. So the next slide is the actual bonding capacity. So it's the same bar chart that we looked at several slides before, but we've added in that gold line. And to Mr. Dennis's point, it dips down in beginning in fiscal year 43 where that third equalization drops off. All of the white space represents the free capacity. Our team, no matter what district size, we always look at, we try to structure debt as optimally as possible. So we look at, is it better to shorten debt, longer. And so we looked at your bonding capacity at 20, 25, and 30 years. And it does not behoove or benefit the district to stretch out debt. You actually are rewarded by paying off debt faster. From my first meeting with Dr. Radford, he was very strategic. And right now, you can see your high point of debt service is this fiscal year 24. You have 17 million of debt service, but you've got 24 million going to those funds. So he's saying, how am I going to best use that 7 million, and then in later years, 9 million, to pay for projects that make sense? So you have a forward-looking team that wants to best utilize that carry forward when you don't have debt service payments to pay projects with cash, or maybe even prepay debt if it makes sense. Just talking about bonding capacity, right now interest rates, as this printed today, bonding capacity is a dynamic number. It's interest rates as of today. We've been conservative in interest rates here, and as ADA changes, that will change bonding capacity. If your ADA goes up by 100, if that 11,500 is conservative, and it goes up to 11,600, bonding capacity goes up to 25 million conservatively. So it's an ever-changing number. One of the things we work with school districts do is thinking about how you layer in projects that make sense. I'll use Bullitt County, for example. They had about 7 projects they wanted to do, and initially we thought we would do one bond issue to group them together and do one bond issue. But we quickly saw that the construction timing and the need for funds was kind of separating, so we separated bonding projects in different bond issues. And we did one in February for some athletics, about 15 million. And then in June of this year, we did about 30 million for a middle school renovation. We try to be strategic to take advantage of interest rates when they're lower. Both of those bonds, because we were ready to act, were below 4% and got 9 or 10 bids. So working with your team, we hope to do the same strategy. Sometimes it makes sense to do all the same one, but if you see a pocket where interest rates have dipped, there's a light, what we call calendar of bond issues. Oldham County is in a very recognizable name, not just in the Commonwealth, out in the state. So when you come to market with a bond issue, you're gonna get the premier investors that wanna be involved in this credit. So that's what Dr. Shelton and I talked about, is being strategic and thinking through, does it make sense to lump them together or take advantage when interest rate dips and get to the market? Out of 171 school districts, just one last thing on this slide, I'd say there's no more than a handful that can talk about the level of bonding capacity that you will have of over 200 million. Most districts, I'll use Bullitt County Schools the same. They have an assessment base just about 10 billion, and their ADA is just a little higher than your all's. We did 40 million this year. They're right at now 100 million of capacity. They only have 3 nickels. Warren County, it's a little less than 200 million. That's another district with 3 nickels. But the growing districts, Scott County's done multiple high schools, and so you can imagine what they've used a lot of their resources. But you guys are extremely well positioned to be very good stewards of your resources and address projects that are important to your district. Next slide, and this is just a sample. We picked a number. As I mentioned earlier, you can pay debt service off much faster and save your constituents interest expense because of how your existing debt is structured and the commitment to your building fund. So on the left hand of the slide, we have a payback assumption. If you all needed to borrow $30 million today, you would pay $30 million of principal. Traditionally, the way of looking at borrowing is if you pay a level payment back is the most conservative. You're not kicking the can. You're going to take on that debt, and I'm going to pay it back in level payments through the life of the loan. So that would be about a $2.2 million bond issue. So with $30 million of principal, the interest on that would be right under $15 million. The total payback would be right around $45 million. And then you can see in the bottom, there's $165 million of resulting capacity. So we said, well, what's the optimal? We use our structuring software, and based on your existing debt and the revenue you commit conservatively to your building fund, if you paid the loan back in 16 and a half years, that same $30 million, you're only going to pay $11 million of interest for a total payback of $41 million, and you're going to result with way more capacity, $180 million. So you can see where we pulled up principal when your existing debt service dropped off. So that's the kind of analysis we want to work with your team to make sure you're saving interest expense while having enough capacity to address the projects your team
Ms. Mercy, thank you for being here. Could I kindly nudge you to the last slide or two? So
Yes.
that we just have a very packed agenda, but I want our board, if they had any questions, they could also ask you questions. So I say that very kindly, so thank you.
I usually never get asked that's really good. Okay, briefly on this slide, so as I said, the funding to the state has been going up. KDE indicates, we all heard that housing boom and assessments going up. KDE thinks that funding to that building fund is going to continue to go up. So the average is 6%, over 6%. We took two scenarios. In July of next year, if it only goes up 5%, what's our bonding capacity? And what if if the state kicks up what it's been going on the last two bienniums? So we feel like that $210 million is very conservative. We feel like you'll be talking about $250 million of capacity next summer. And then last slide, just some key features of your bonding capacity. It is really important to acknowledge and commend yourselves for the commitment to the 4 nickels. As we talked about, those are vital to continue to receive the 4 equalizations. And then another anomaly of your situation is rebuilding capacities. Most districts get to do that one project, and then they're tapped out for quite a while. Every year with the existing debt you have, you pick up $10 to $12 million of capacity just because of the existing principal you're paying off. And then another feature is you guys get to be great stewards. Your leadership team and your board, you get to be great stewards of your resources and pay back debt service quickly while maintaining healthy capacity for future projects. So that's a great thing to be a part of, and our team is excited to talk about the projects, and I will close out on that. If there's any questions, I can answer.
Board members, questions, comments?
What, if we borrow 10 million, what would be 4% interest? And I know 2% is about 5 million, correct, over 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, you probably have a couple, but, you know, it'll be up. I can give you the exact schedule. I'd hate to give you a number, but.
Just ballpark.
Well, if you look at I would do an optimal scenario so that I wouldn't, if looking at your 30 million, you third that number of the interest on that scenario. So instead of 11 million, you probably have 3 million, let's say 3 million of interest. Because we're not going to do level, the number you're referencing is like a level payment. We're going to bring forward, if you needed 10 million, we're going to bring forward quite a bit of principal. It probably wouldn't even be a 16-year deal for 11 million. You probably do it over 13 years.
Why don't we use 10 years instead of 20 years more often?
Because that's typically how most school districts can afford projects. What you guys are talking about, able to do shorter debt, our team wasn't able to do that for many districts until Warren County got the 3rd equalization. And most of the time, it's just affording what you can. So that 4th equalization really positions you to pay back debt much quicker.
All right.
The 4th state match.
And Mr. Radford, if we, going through the forecast, LaGrange, Buckner, I'm not sure if Buckner alternative will be cash or not, Art Center, South Oldham, preschool, next 2-year projects, that'll put us at 140 million, basically. And then we're already at 30, 40 already in debt, so it would be about 280 in about 2 years. Is that accurate?
Well, you're going to be paying off principal too. So think every year you're going to pay off about 30 million. Every year you pay off, several million of debt. 10-year, over that period, you're paying off principal now. And I don't have the exact breakdown, but I mean, I think you pay off several million.
As I mentioned earlier, we have about 16 million in the building fund now, and if you take the annual revenue that Marcy just explained, the 24 million that we're putting in there, we're only spending at 17 million, so we're generating an additional surplus of about 7 million, and that's going to grow. So a lot of those projects that you just mentioned will be paid through cash.
That's why I was asking about the high school. I saw cash on that, which kind of shocked me because it was a bigger project.
And we'll also work the group projects, again, to her point about which projects make sense for group and when we would sell bonds and which ones
But
we would do with cash.
now in like 2028, according to what you gave me last time we met, I kept it. We're going to drop down to about 5 million extra cash if we increase our bond another 112 million.
And those are conservative,
4 or 5
they're
years.
based on the conservative assumptions. I probably use a pretty conservative revenue assumption, flat revenue. I don't have that in front of me, but I think we held revenue flat. So your revenue typically creeps up with that state funding, and even just flat ADA, you typically get more money.
All right.
But I can dive more into that sheet. I think I have a copy with me, but
That one assumed no growth.
the revenue.
And as you know, our assessment grew 8% this year. Grew a little over 5%. So if assessment grows and ADA grows, that gap bigger.
Will increase. All right. All right, thank you. I appreciate you coming out.
I hope it
really
was
do.
informative, and I'm just thrilled I got asked to stop.
I've been waiting for a while.
That's never happened.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carla, did you want to?
Yes, I wanted to kind of piggyback off that, and you may be able to have some input on this. But we've kind of been getting a crash course in all of this. As you can see, this is a lot of information. But I actually met with Speaker Osborne last month, at the end of last month, and out of that meeting, we came up with some ideas of things that we're asking more on the state level. And just to share with everyone some of those ideas that we came up with. Transportation being fully funded, which sounds like the most likely thing that could potentially happen, which would give us an additional, $2.6 million in revenue? Some other ideas that we talked about were funding the SROs, which is, what's the amount on that?
It's approximately just under $400,000.
Okay, so that's about $400,000. And then another thing that we talked about with him was increasing the SEEK amount, which he seems to think will potentially happen. Obviously there's no guarantees, but what we've asked potentially for is $200 per student on that. So just continuing to get some feedback from him on that. But we're having some very positive conversations about just some out-of-the-box things that we can do to increase revenue and, for teacher salaries and other things. So just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Carly.
Ms. Clem, thank you for sharing that. And Ms. Mercick, as you can tell, our board has had many conversations about how best to use our restricted funds, but at the same time, how we can increase revenue so that we, on the general fund side, to do all that we can for staff. And so appreciate the advocation and appreciate the questions from our board. So thank you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. I just would say I commend you all for asking, because state funding is not like Publisher Clearinghouse. They're not going to show up and say you get more money. So until you ask, that's the only way. So ask for the stars and moon, because and you're a partner with the right, he's a leader in that group. So you have the right ear. So I commend you all for those conversations, because they won't just walk up and say you're getting more money unless you ask. So.
For sure. And obviously no guarantees, but we're taking some baby steps here. And Tom's done a really good job I feel like I'm taking a college course on all of this. So it's just very interesting and very important to all of us. And then as far as those restricted funds, I know we had talked about potentially maybe having some more flexibility with the restricted funds. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Or?
Sure. As you heard Ms. Mercick say, she mentioned a capital fund request for us to be able to use that restricted funds for purchase of buses, insurance, and technology. We currently have done that in the past and continue to look at that. I think that would be legislative action for us to be able to expand what restricted funds could go towards. But right now, that's what we have, and I've had conversations with legislators about that. But there's currently that would take legislative action for us to do that. But I appreciate that. That's a really good question.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for putting this together so much. It's very broken down and easy to understand, and it's very informative for us to have when we make votes on projects coming up. So I really appreciate your time and effort.
Thank you all very much for the kind comments. We're excited, and let us know if we can do anything else.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Shelton, too. Okay, we're going to move around the agenda just a little bit. We're going to do student showcase next, and then recognitions, and then we'll take a short break, and then we'll get back into the meat of the agenda. But I want to be fair to everybody's time. So if we can have Goshen come up.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, can we go ahead and vote on the treasurer's report? Sorry, we forgot to do that. I forgot to do that. Can I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mr. Dodson. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Sorry, Jane. Welcome, Goshen.
Good evening, how are you?
Come on down.
It's great seeing everybody this evening. I'm really excited. You know, at Goshen, we're steeped in tradition, and I'm really excited this evening to be able to share one of those traditions with you. And I'm joined today by some of my amazing students. I'm here with Elena and Dean, Evan, Tori, and Peyton, and our fourth grade teachers, team leader Aaron Roberts, Mr. Wallace, Ms. McKee, Ms. Godfrey, and Ms. Vrabel. And we start the school year off in fourth grade, and our team engages our upcoming fourth graders in a really unique activity called string art. And while it's super engaging for the students, it embeds collaboration and some lifelong learning. And they're here to tell you about that. And I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roberts.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. We have been doing string art at Goshen for well over 15 years, since before I came, and it started back a long time ago. We had a teacher that was reading a professional development book and got interested in the idea of building classroom community through a craft. And at the time, she started looking on the websites and trying to find something really interesting. This was back before Pinterest was even around, so she had to do some searching, and she came across String Art is Fun website. And there were some free string art patterns. So her and a few teachers got together, they found some wood, they got some paint, and started the first year of string art. Since then, it has grown. We do it for the entire fourth grade. So there's about 120 students every year, and we start off day one. We have the wood boards right in the classroom ready to go. And I do want to give a shout out to Matthew Mullins at Home Depot. He gave us a huge discount, which allows us to continue with the prices going up with wood, allows us to continue this project. So we start out the first day with sanding. They start out day one, coming into the classroom. We tell them they're going to have to work hard because there's a lot of fourth graders that will come in. After 5 minutes, they're like, I'm done. We're like, no, you're not. We have 3 full days of sanding. So they start on the front to get it nice and smooth. Then they go to the sides, and then we end up with the corners trying to get those nice and round. We had a student one year that asked if they could take it home and use a power sander. And we said that would be amazing, but no, we're not going to take shortcuts in fourth grade. That's one of our main rules. And then we go into painting. So they paint it all black, get them all a nice blank space to work on. And then after the painting, we go into nailing. The nailing, we use these tiny little 1/2-inch boat nails, and it takes about 80 to 100 of those per board. So the students are working with these little hammers, trying to get them all nailed in. Back a long time ago, we used to have them bring in the hammers, like as a car rider, bring those in so they weren't on the buses. But over the years, we've gathered a collection of around 130 hammers. So we have those at Goshen now, which is nice. But they start out and they nail, and that takes a lot of hard work. A lot of these students realize that the first day they might only get 10 nails in, and they have to figure out how to hold the nail or use some pliers. Some of them use teamwork because they have somebody else hold the nail while they hit the nail in and they get all their patterns in. After that, they number their nails, and then they will work on their pattern. And with their pattern, we let them pick a variety. We have 4 different designs that we do. And they have to go through the numbers, and they might have to go from like 5 to 27, 27 to 6, 6 to 34, and then they eventually come up with the designs that these students have to show you and share. So they're going to share their experiences and some of the rules that we have in 4th grade. Elena?
Others helped me to be kind because I broke my arm. They all were very helpful and kind, like 2 people in my class named Amelia and Anya. They helped me even though they still had to do their own boards. I think Goshen is always teaching us to be kind, and especially our 4th grade teachers.
Oh, thanks. Good job.
String art taught me about teamwork. If there is a buddy a little behind in nailing, my friend and I would go help them until they caught up. So I know my friends will help me at school if I ever need help. When we did our string art, our teachers didn't let us do something to make it easier, which taught us that life has no shortcuts. So later on, because of it, when we're older, we will remember that.
During string art, we struggled a lot, but that didn't stop us from trying and working hard. It made us work harder, and that is something we will always do in life.
I learned that in string art you persevere and never give up. We had to work with others and give advice. I had to work extra hard with my arm and got frustrated, but my friend Lucy was helping me a ton. So not only did I learn to work hard, but I noticed every fourth grade rule being used.
And then we were going to go ahead and show the video. These are just some pictures that we have of the students. Do I need to go over there?
I think Jane,
She's
Jane
got
started.
it. Thank you.
This is one word we would use to pronounce our string art. Mine is patience. Stay calm. Relaxing. Perseverance. Traditional. Challenging. Unique. Determination. Creative. Collaborative. Genius. Memorable. Challenging and fun. I describe string art in one word, and that is artsy. Difficult, creative, perseverance, challenging.
So when you're starting a new grade level, you're a little nervous, you got new teachers, you got new friends. It's really an amazing way to start off the year. Teamwork, working hard, no shortcuts are lessons that they take throughout all of fourth grade and beyond. And then we see it in our younger kiddos too, because they see their fourth graders, they look up to them and they're like, ooh, I'm excited about that too. So it's a really fun tradition. It really does tie into the deeper learning that the district is doing as a whole as well. And it's one that I know we're going to continue well into the future. And with that said, if you have any questions for our students.
Well, since there's 5 of you and 5 of us, can each of you come up and show us your handiwork closer so we can get a better look at it, please? Can you all come up? You want to spread out and show one person?
Cool. So good.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So
What's in the middle part right here? Is that the nails? That's cool.
We kind of hit your finger.
Very cool.
That's amazing.
You did such a good job.
That's really good. That's awesome. Hey, thank you all for coming. Thank you for
Thank you all. You all did an excellent job. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Good
thank
job,
you.
guys.
Next up, we're going to do recognitions, and we have a lot of awards to give out. And with a room full of educators, I just want to say as a parent, thank you all for coming up with these awesome ideas that keep all of our kids engaged and excited to come into your classrooms every day and see what's going to be in there next.
Should we help?
Usually they do it.
They do it.
Yeah.
At this time, I'd like to welcome Gina Babbitt with the Oakland County Educational Foundation to announce the 44 teachers who have won Pyramid Awards in 2023. This year, the Oakland County Education Foundation gave $46,454.13 Pyramid Awards. Congratulations to these innovative teachers. We're very fortunate to have them on our team and the Oakland County Education Foundation for their work. Please give them a big hand in advance.
Lori, do you want mine real quick? Here.
Good evening. Yeah, we're very excited. So just would like to introduce part of our Oldham County Educational Foundation Board. You'll hear, we're called OSEF, in case you hear that term more often. So Mary is a board member, part of our Pyramid Award Committee, and Aaliyah is also, she's our president this year, and Nicole as well. So they're instrumental in helping, and Kathleen Line also she does a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff to make it run smoothly. So she's back there. Thank you, Kathleen. So you did take away one of my fun facts, which is how much money we were able to give. But I'll.
My apologies, Ms. Patrick.
You didn't know my speech. But so. We were founded in 1989, and I'd just like to remind anybody that doesn't know, because I think it's interesting, the original goal of OSEF was to put a computer in every classroom. So that was how it was founded, and it was a group effort between businesses and parents. And so we've come a long way, obviously, and now, and Pyramid Awards it's been our signature program since the beginning. So it's really exciting. We have now, over our 30-plus years, have given around $600,000 to just right back to teachers. That doesn't include other things that we're able to give into the district. Everything we fundraise goes into the district. But specifically, Pyramid Awards, we've done a lot. We did hear from teachers and feedback, and they said, it's been $1,000. That's how much we've given for 30 years. Well, we know, like we hear, prices, everything's going up. So we voted, and this year we raised it to $1,250. It was great. We had a lot of applicants and anonymously scored. So this year, like you heard, we were able to give $44,000 and $46,000. So we do really we fundraise and we put in a lot of that money, but also the Peyton Samuel Head Family Trust is a really big part of what we do, and they're very generous to help us with Pyramid Awards every year. So I'm going to go through, and I'll do it like I do every year. I'm going to call you up by school. I'm going to say how many that there are per school, and I'm going to say the name of the recipient, and if there's a collaborator, the project title, and then if there's one, just come up. If there's 2, 4, or 5, just all come up and have your certificate, an award, and a picture. And at the end, we will all go out, and there's some really delicious food waiting. I don't know if you smelled it when you came in. I did taste some while I was waiting. It's really good. I was hungry. But I want to say that we did get sponsors to cover that cost, because everything we do when we fundraise, we really want to make sure we're good stewards of the money. So that reception is sponsored by Symetra, Ash Group, MetLife, Voya, Beam, and Work Instruction. So big thanks to them. And I will say, anybody in the room, and then I'll start. If you have bought a limo raffle ticket for someone you know, or your child or grandchild or a friend, if you've attended Brackett Barbecue, if you send your love to a teacher or staff, a bus driver, or anybody, if you've sponsored an event, if you've just donated online or any other way through your business or company, or most recently, we had a Ford Drive event, you helped what we're doing tonight, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much for supporting us. So with the exciting stuff, here we go. First is Arvin Education Center. So we have 2 projects. Patty Beth Miller and Audrey Devine, Sensory Exploration to Improve Productivity. And then Gateway at Arvin, Nicole Shappett. Time for a brainstorm. If you want to, yep, head. Makes. Do you want to be in pictures? Or anybody else? Is anybody feeling a moment? No, we're good. Heather's going to be our photographer. Thank you, Heather. Oh, maybe that's why we were over there all the time. Congratulations. Next is Buckner Alternative High School. Carrie Shade. Everyone Has a Story, Library Expansion Project.
No, don't feel like you need to clap though, we get you.
Congratulations. Next is Buckner Elementary, Felicia Claus, collaborator Jennifer Dolan, The Innovative Classroom. Congratulations. Congratulations. Next is Camden Station Elementary. We have two. One is Lauren Bond, Maker Space of Dreams. If they build it, they will learn. And Lori Cahoe with collaborator Dana Moore, Multi-Sensory Reading Intervention. Congratulations. Next is Centerfield Elementary, who have 6 award recipients. Aaron King, Old School, Music Rules. I like that one. Carrie Sweeney, It's Time to Learn Through Real World Connections. Carrie Stevens, Inspiring All Students to be Mathematicians. Kara Cottle, Board Games. Tamara Wright, The Road to Middle School. And Milana Sawyer, Full Steam Ahead, Integrating STEAM Activities into the 5th grade classroom. Congratulations. Congratulations. Next is Creative and Performing Arts Academy, also known as CAPA. Garrett Appleman, History Through Gaming. Congratulations. Congratulations. Next is Crestwood Elementary. They had 4 recipients. And sorry, it's hard, I obviously need my glasses, so I apologize. I'm normally much more efficient, but I can't even read my small type. Chelsea Conroy, iPads for English learners. Corinne Finch with collaborator Tracy Jamagan, Big Tools for Kids. Nancy Robertson, Staying a Step Ahead of Great Readers. And Christina Kephart, Teaching Self-Monitoring Skills with Reminder Watches. Congratulations. We make it a lot of other people. All right. Next is East Oldham Middle School. They had 3 recipients. Nikki Williams with collaborator Connie Morrison, Growing with Cooking. Allie Geesting, Dive into Drama. And Kendall Ross, Project Design through STEM. Congratulations. Next is ECS District, Briley Johnson, Handwriting Without Tears. Congratulations. Just set that on the side with an award, please. Thank you. Next is Goshen Elementary. There's 2 in a way that another person sees Goshen and Harmony Elementary, but so we'll start with just Goshen Elementary, which is Brooke Wiseman, Celebrating Diversity in the Elementary Classroom. Congratulations. Congratulations. So for Goshen and Harmony, Mary Beth McClarty, Handwriting Growth and Remediation through Sensory Motor Tasks paired with Literacy Skills. Congratulations. Next is Kenwood Station Elementary. We had 2 recipients. Sherry Meyer, Building Harmony, 1 ukulele at a time, and Christy King, phonics storybooks. Congratulations. Next is LaGrange Elementary, who took the lead this year from Centerfield, in case anybody was counting from last year, because Centerfield always has the most, with seven recipients. Just side note. Rachel Barmanger, books are mirrors and windows. Brittany Stevens, Can You Hear Me Now? Vicki Siebert, Increasing Structured Opportunities for Success for Struggling Readers. Travis Goff, with collaborator Melinda Hadley, If You Give a Kid a Block. Samantha Abercrombie, Who Was History Club. Taylor Martin, Handwriting Toolbox. And Megan Rose, Cracking the Code for Struggling Readers. Congratulations.
Well, no, I've moved for most of them. I've done this. I've turned sideways and kind of.
Next is North Oldham Middle School. They had 4 recipients. Brenda Cole, Biology in Action. Ron Atkinson, collaborator Craig Grimm, As the Pen Turns, Making a Custom Ink Pen. Pete Williams, The World Through a Different Lens. And Tyler Smith, utilizing sight reading applications to create more effective musicians. Congratulations. Next, there's one from Oldham County Middle School, Kelsey Kidd, Functional Cooking Equipment. Congratulations. Next, there is one from Oldham County Preschool, Megan Cheek, Time for Tough Work. Congratulations. Next is South Oldham High School, who have 3 recipients. Piper Meidel, with collaborator Jennifer Palega and Samuel Ellis, Thinking on Your Feet with Whiteboards. Justin Romney, wheelchair ramp and adaptive musical instruments for choir students with special needs. And Bethany Abercrombie, Puzzle Paradise. Congratulations. And last there is, last but not least, I should always say, because I mean it, because I do have a kid here, but South Oldham Middle School, Carol Scheibler, Modeling Genetics.
My kids have loved Miss Shibler, I'd just like to say, and Ron Atkinson, love you and miss you.
Well, that is everybody. Thank you all. I will say when they're being voted or judged, or there's a whole scoring algorithm, but we do not know the school name. There's no identifying information that comes to the people who score, and we do not know the teacher's name. So a lot of times for people, it's a surprise even for us on the board when we find out. It's always really exciting, and you can tell where it's pretty much almost every school in the district, and it's just really exciting that everybody is, that they're putting in these great ideas. We have really remarkable and special teachers in our district. So thank you to them very much, and we hope you keep applying, and we're going to keep fundraising more money to give back. So thank you all, and Pyramid Award winners and guests, let's go eat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, so we're gonna start back at 6:23. So just an FYI. I don't want anything. Hey, I don't want anything. No, I'm good. No, because we got. Yeah.
Okay.
So the interest rate was.
What did you think it was? And what is it
Okay, good.
from?
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
double.
The two things he seemed like open to were the
Shut. Well, that
transportation
makes
and the seat fund.
Oh my gosh, we have so much left. We have a lot left.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, let's go. Okay, we're gonna get back started.
Okay.
Check, check. Larry's making his way back up.
When we do these
Good?
consent items, we're breaking them down, right? But not all at once.
No, we're doing them all at once.
Okay.
We are not breaking them down. We
Okay,
can
I just gotta
ask-
break.
We can ask
I
questions.
gotta pull out a couple.
Okay, we can ask questions. Okay, we have meeting minutes that we need to approve. So first up, we've got August 28th, 2023, special called tax hearing minutes. Board members, any changes or additions?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve those? Made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mrs. Clem. All those in favor? And Larry? I can't see your hand. Okay, that's 5-0. Next up, August 28th, 2023, regular board meeting minutes. Any changes or additions? Can I have a motion to approve? Made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mr. Dodson. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. And finally, August 31st, special called meeting minutes for public expression. I believe that's what it was. Any questions or additions? Motion to approve, made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mrs. Clem. All those in favor? And that's,
I wasn't there for that one.
you can still approve the minutes. That's 5-0. Okay, next up, sir.
Yes, personnel actions, just present the personnel report to the board as presented.
Board members, any questions? Okay, next up, consent items. There are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's 9 items on here. Board members, questions on any of these?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Oh, just B4. It's about the development for the elementaries. I just want to make sure that approving this is just the initial starting point of the playgrounds. And we can develop, we can give more money and we can do, it's just getting us started as what's going to be surveyed, what is the potential, but we can add to it and the board can decide how much to fund those projects. Okay?
The initial project application to Katie.
To get us going. Got it. Okay.
So let's stay on that. Why are we spending money on LaGrange if we're either renovating or building a new school for playground and floors and everything else?
Some of the items that are on the consent item, or the consent agenda tonight are finishing up projects that we've had started. Some of them are things that need to be done while we occupy the building. Until the day that we don't occupy the building anymore, we do still have to maintain some of the floor finishes and use for the students who have it currently. So some of the things that started, you'll see some, I think one of them in particular was floor replacement at the lower
Yes.
level where we had rearranged some floors, rearranged some rooms at the lower level classroom for specifically for their function this year, what they needed for their ECS students this year. And this will be finishing up that project that we didn't quite get done before we get back into it.
So that's a finish up. What about the 220,000 for the playground?
That would be the phase 2 of the elementary school project.
that's everything, all of them.
B4. Oh,
That's
that's
what we
all
just
of them?
That's, yeah, that's all of them lumped together.
That weren't previously touched or, from the phase 1 of the project.
All right. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're good. I'm good. I'm good.
All right. Well, let's go back to the BG1, talk LaGrange, since we're on it.
Which one, can you say which number you're on, Joe?
BG1,
But
B1.
B, okay,
I'm sorry, I'm old school. I got mine written by hand.
that's okay. I was just making sure we were on the same one.
So my understanding is you're closing out the renovation. The renovation's no longer an option, and we're going to build a new LaGrange Elementary.
Correct. Item B1
Hey, Brent, will you come up to the microphone, please? Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank
Try
you.
to have all of my ducks in a row here. Again, so May of 2022 was the last action that the board had on the previous project, which was the LaGrange Elementary addition and renovation project. Subsequent to that, in February of 2023, if I get my timeline right here, the board approved the new district facility plan, which instructed us basically to, which included a priority one project for a new LaGrange Elementary School. So what we're asking tonight in this enclosure is to close out the BG process for KDE for the previous project so that we can bring to you the new BG1 for the new elementary school project.
So when you give us that board priorities and future projects, so when we voted on that to accept that, that's basically saying we voted for a new school in LaGrange.
The board.
The board?
The district facility plan?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes. So that's kind of our roadmap for the next 4 years as far as capital construction goes. As put together by the local planning committee and then brought to the board for approval, to send to the state for approval, and then back to the board for final approval.
All right. I haven't seen anything on the new school. I haven't seen anything on the renovations. Haven't been able to really ask a lot. I thought we were just kind of in a pattern. I'm just telling you right now, I will not vote to get rid of the renovations unless you could convince me to build a new school.
Okay.
I'm for keeping the school in LaGrange.
Okay.
We know what happened to Liberty. I think it was one of the worst disasters this district made, closing that. And a lot of my constituents, you know, are very close to that school. So.
Weren't there some reasons, Brent, that I feel like I'm trying to remember us talking about this back in February, but weren't there some reasons why you all were asking us to approve the new school versus the renovation?
Yes, and we could go back and bring the LPC meeting minutes back up and go through that with you. I'd be happy to do that, to kind of flash back to where we were back in February.
Yeah, and I was on the LPC. I was the board member that was on that committee, so I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about, I mean, there's what, 15, 20 of us on the committee?
The local planning committee is made up of 20 members, including one board member,
administrators,
a couple administrators, parents, teachers, community members, local leadership.
Because I know we had talked to a
Planning
lot
and
of the
zoning.
community and they were wanting the renovation, but then I feel like there was like a strong reason why we couldn't do that. I just am, I don't know if it was like a mold issue or.
No, it was just.
It was a multitude of issues,
Okay.
including the limited amount of space that the footprint of that campus contains, and the fact that there's so many different levels on it that the renovation of that school, to spend that much money to try to make it what it needs to be, was not going to be cost effective versus building a brand new school that can be built to current construction specifications. And you know, Jonathan Westbrook was one of the people that was on there, and he said from a construction standpoint that what you see is just part of it, and what you can't see once they get into it, you could be millions and millions more once they got into trying to renovate that school. And you know, my input was, after living through a renovation on the South Campus at Camden, one at South High, one at South Middle, it was tight when you had construction equipment on that campus, which is huge. And with the limited footprint that LaGrange has, I don't know where anybody would park. I don't know where they would drop kids off. The amount that a construction and trying to renovate that school where it currently sits, I don't know how you would have been able to do anything else on that campus for quite some time.
And what I'll share with the board, and I appreciate Mr. Dennis's comment and this conversation, and Chair Hunley, thank you for that input, is closing this BG1 process is technical in nature because KDE has asked us to do that, but it would not halter or slow down our process to move forward. I do plan to, and working to come back and share with the board about what those next steps would look like. This is just because it was approved initially, and then based upon the LPC recommendation, it is something KDE has asked us to do, but we can move at the speed the board is ready to, and what I would share with the board is my recommendation would be not to slow down, even though it's being recommended that we close this out because it's technical in nature, because the department's asked us to do that.
Right, this is more of a closeout of an accounting, of a spending account that was organized for this project in particular. So to start a new project, KDE has asked us to start with a new BG number, a clean slate for the next project.
Any other questions?
Did we look at the land behind there? Part of that's owned by the city of LaGrange. Did we speak to them?
You'd have to show me which land you're talking about that's owned by the city of LaGrange.
I think it's behind the playground, is it not, or the parking lot?
We can take a closer look at it, but I don't think it is.
I thought a little part of that was.
But voting on this, does it limit us having a renovation for the next round? Like, we could say renovation or new school, like by voting this out, like, are we voting this completed?
Yeah, so what this would do would close out that BG1, which is the project initiation. They got us up to this point in the discussions of schematic design, which was presented to the local planning committee. So this would close out that project and would start a new project. The new project would be initiated by the board as the next step.
And we did vote, we already voted on February 22nd of this year to approve the new district facility plan.
Right, but I wasn't on the board, so I'm a little behind.
And we are talking about this during executive session, just
so then,
all right,
so you're aware.
I understand we voted then, and it's an error on my part because I didn't know approving that plan approved everything in it, because now I will look at every little single thing and probably not vote it again like that. But live and learn, and I'm learning.
Any other questions?
Are you going to pull it out? Okay.
Are there
I got a question.
Yes,
Don't
sir.
leave yet.
All right.
I'm looking at all the sports. Has anybody thought about putting cameras up so we could actually stream?
Yes, sir.
Is that
part of the let's see, line item number the next round of stadium improvements would include some of the lighting upgrades that we talked about, but it would also include technology upgrades. Currently, we have, of the 3 stadiums, I think only one of them has wireless capability currently to support those streaming services such as Huddle. So creating, in that design would be creating IDF closets in either the field house, similar to like we have at South now after that renovation, or the press box at North End, or the concession stand at OC, whatever the closest proximity would be. Actually, it'd probably be the field house at OC, to bring fiber to the press box so that we could actually split that up and use it for streaming services or for Huddle film review. All of the technology upgrades that we've discussed also include sound, audio improvements as well, so that when we leave the stadiums after this round of projects, that we have full capability both for the data and the technology portion of that as well.
all right? And just explain the process. Why do we not do that when you give us these BGs? Why ain't the whole project on there? Why
So-
are we doing stadium lighting later and having to go back through it all instead of?
Some of it's a feasibility on when we can construct things with having the least disruption to school operations. Some of them are, for example, the lighting is a great example of that. We have to get through the renovations that we've got currently going on at the stadiums so that I can make improvements to the lighting package. Otherwise, we wouldn't have lights on the stadium currently.
So you can't do it all at once?
I can do it all at once sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way just because of the time of year or based on what, what sport we're falling into or trying to close out. The lighting packages, for example, have a longer lead time than block and brick do. So sometimes we have to stagger that so that we can get it done in a manner that doesn't interrupt playing sports on the field as much as possible.
And that's a good question. Another thing that could disrupt that is the packages could be because we put bids out and might collect 0 bids, so then we might have to break up a package because of no one bid on this particular project, so we had to make them smaller. So there's several factors that can contribute to that.
Is there a way we can see when you do something that we know other packages are coming behind it?
Mhm.
Like, I didn't even know about the camera thing.
Yeah, and that's actually would be the schematic design phase, when we bring to you schematic design, or if the initial BG1, in that BG1 has a scope category that kind of gives us a big picture of what we're trying to accomplish with that. So you might see line items in that BG1 that has, it might be, say, stadium improvements, site accessibility, data or lighting upgrades to facilities. Sometimes we try to keep those generic enough that we can pick up all that we need to pick up, but specific enough that we hit the highlights of the project. For example, it might say sidewalk improvements, but it's not going to say from here to here to here to here.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else on the consent items? All right, thank you all.
So do we need to have another discussion about LaGrange, or is this,
Well-
we already approved that?
I'm telling Madam Chair, on B1 and 10, I cannot vote for. Number 10, I will not vote for till after executive session.
Okay.
So if you
pull
want to do
this.
it all at once, or you can do it all together, or separate, I don't care.
So what I would suggest or share with the board and Madam Chair and for our board members is that the consent items as presented, my recommendation would be to approve the consent items, and then should that not, all that's presented, should that not be approved or pass, majority vote, then the board could make another motion to add or change or adjust based upon this conversation. It's technical in nature because of just the process for board meetings, and that would be my recommendation.
Okay. So, motion to approve the consent items as listed on the agenda. Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor?
This is approving all of them?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's 3-0.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on. Wait, I'm confused. So I'm fine with all of them except the one.
Okay, well, we voted on all of them.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is confusing me.
Okay, so which one do you not want to vote on?
Well, I'm unsure on the one. I thought we were talking about that in the executive session. The other ones I'm fine with.
Okay, so what we have to do first is we have to vote on all of them, and then if we want to change it, then we can change it. So let me start over again. Approval on the consent items as listed on the agenda. Can I have a motion? Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor? Okay, so that's 2, and all those opposed is 3. Okay. Mrs. Clem, can you make a motion to pull whichever.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to pull B1 until we can have just a further discussion. Is that right?
And
10, 10B.
10. B1 and B10. Right?
Well,
She made the motion.
So you all are down.
I'm actually okay.
You're in facility, you're talking about facility.
B10,
Okay.
I'm okay with.
Okay. So,
B10 is the field improvements.
That's
Okay.
after the executive session.
Is that correct? I'm okay with that.
okay. So you are unsure of B,
You'd like to table B1.
I'd like to table B1 until we can have a further discussion.
okay. So.
I just don't want to make a mistake on that one.
That's fine. Okay, so we are going to table B1. So
Just need a motion.
Carly, your motion is to approve the consent items with B1 pulled out of 10B.
Yes.
Okay, can I have a second for that?
What is this again? Sorry.
She's pulling out B1.
So I'm pulling out B1,
Can I
but
make a motion
voting
to pull
on,
B10 until after?
We aren't talking about it.
I don't have an issue
And-
with B10, just B1.
Okay, so we have to vote on Carly's motion, we have to vote on Carly's motion first. So Carly is asking to pull B1 out of consent item number 10B. Can I get a second on that? Larry, please, raise your hand.
B1 is the LaGrange, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a second.
Am I not understanding this correctly?
No, you're fine. So we can revisit B1 after executive session.
It's B10?
That's what you're saying.
No, B10 is the field.
B10 is the field.
That's not this.
B10's coming up on executive session, correct?
So can we
Today?
make, that's what she just said.
No.
No, the
LaGrange is being discussed,
conversation.
not the fields.
All right, what's the motion?
What's the
So-
feedback?
The motion is to pull B1 and vote on it potentially after executive session, and the rest of the consent goes.
Yes.
Yes. Do I have a second for that? Made by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor? And that's 3-0. All those opposed? Oh, sorry, that's 3. You can't vote for both.
What are you voting?
We're pulling out B1.
Pulling out
Okay,
B1.
that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. But I don't think you call it.
Okay,
So I made a motion to pull out B1.
Allison made a second. Okay, the 3 ladies said yay. The 2 gentlemen said no.
Okay.
Okay, so that passes. Okay,
And now what?
that's it.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yes, your motion passed.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
I
no,
just
no.
want to make sure I'm,
Yes, no, that was correct. So we will revisit B1.
okay.
Okay, superintendent reports, sir.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Chair. And just to clarify, thank you, board members, all the consent items were approved with the exception of B1 and the facility items, which would be for further consideration. So thank you. Next is superintendent reports, and I'd like to invite, first is the superintendent for the IOP. I would just share, outline that to the board as presented in your packet. There is evidence and of my activities aligned to the 7 standards that the board evaluates myself on. And I would just draw your attention to that for review. If you have any questions, please let me know. We try to submit as many pictures as we can and updates that happen over the, and this is since the new fiscal year started. So that is just for your review.
Thank you. Next up, sir.
Yes, next I'd like to invite Ms. Six to come forward to share an update on district priorities.
Okay, so the document you see in front of you is the beginning of our strategic plan, which will guide us over the next 3 to 5 years. And I just want to give you an update. Our strategic planning committee's met twice this year so far, And what you see in this document are the goals we've set for students, employees, families, and community. And these goals are based on collection of data over the last 2 years. So, as you can see, the first goal listed in each category cites the need for all of our folks, our stakeholders, to be valued and engaged. So last week when we met, we began identifying the actions we need to take to meet our goals. And we prioritized certain goals on this list. For example, with students, we talked about the need to make sure that they have access to learning opportunities in world-class facilities in the academics, arts, and athletics. And so you've discussed a lot of those facilities tonight. We've had lots of reports around that, and I believe we are on our way to improving our facilities. Under employees, we want our employees to feel valued as professionals and have a voice. And so that's something we've been working on in the past and will continue to work on. And we want our employees to experience a healthy work-life balance. We know that to recruit and retain employees, we have to master that. And so we're dedicated and committed to that. With families, we felt the priority was for our families to have clarity around their child's progress, P through 12. Lots of our survey data indicates that parents might see a standard, but they really may not understand. What does my child know and what is my child able to do? So we want to start with elementary and come up with a common progress reporting system and also increase the number of positive communications our parents and families receive about their child. With the community, we want our community to be aware and informed through two-way communication, not just one-way communication, and we're trying to design some actions around that. And we want our folks to also be able to engage and advocate for our district at the local and state level. So, when we meet again on October 6th, we will be designing the measures that will be reported to you in the form of a scorecard. So, we're working on it. It's in draft, but the scorecard will be the way that we show you how we're doing on our goals, what actions we're taking. And our work will be coordinated through the various work groups that we've planned to pull together. Some are already meeting, and the current communication systems we have or will have in the future. So those include Roadshow 2.0, community council engagement, increased district presence in the schools. We're thinking about a 3-campus event for parents where they come in and hear what's going on in our district sometime in the spring. And then, of course, increased representation in our local community with the service groups. So this is just a quick snapshot of our work so far. We've gotten a lot done so far, and we're excited about the 3 to 5 year plan. Do you have any questions?
Charlotte, can you tell us how many people are on this committee?
On the Strategic Planning Committee, I believe there are 10 of us. And then each work group has 10 to 12 people, but we may add people as the year goes by, as we meet and come up with different tasks, different charges for the group.
Great, thank you. Board members, any questions? Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Six. Mr. Bohannon, can I invite you back to do a construction update? You're a busy man tonight. Thank you. While Mr. Bohannon's coming forward, I just really want to say a big shout out to he and his department on the work that they're doing to move our district forward. Really appreciate the effort, the energy that it's taking place. So just thank you.
Thank you very much. Included in your board packet, you'll see our regular bi-monthly construction report. Tonight we do things a little bit different. I want to focus on 3 of the major projects that we have coming up and kind of delve into those a little more specifically instead of giving you the rundown of everything we've got going on. But do feel free at any point to stop me if you want to talk about anything specifically on that report. We do want to focus on some projects that we have coming up on the horizon, and the purpose of that is to kind of get some initial reactions from the board, get some comments as to the pleasure of the board's direction on some of these projects, and how we move forward so that the facilities team can go back to our design consultants and our architects and engineers with directions that's suitable to the board. First off is a project that's it's officially titled the Buckner Alternative High School and Oldham County High School Improvements Project. You've seen this printed or heard of many times in the past under a couple different names. It's trying to get it summarized into one nice title, but this will be the title that will be found on the documents moving forward. So if you do see some lingering pieces of that before, we'll go ahead and get that corrected. This project will be, as an action item tonight, we'll be seeking approval of the initial BG1, which is the project application form that gets sent to the KDE. In that, you'll see kind of a, like we discussed a little bit earlier, Mr. Dennis, a kind of a broad scope of what's included in the project. I thought I would run through a little bit of that scope tonight to give you all kind of make you all familiar with what that project entails. New 75-student Buckner Alternative High School plan as outlined, on our district facility plan. A new spectator gym, including all the ancillary spaces allowed by the Kentucky Department of Education's model code, such as sports locker rooms, PE locker rooms, coaches' offices, storage, everything that comes with a new spectator gym facility. New community outreach spaces. Similar to that was previously held by Operation Parent, and even further back with OLOP, and some spaces available for that type of use. Also included would be a new Little Colonel daycare facility. This would be replacing the facility that's currently in use. Specialized non-traditional spaces. This is one of those times where we're using a kind of a broad term to not specifically lock us into specific uses on that. With more information on that will be defined as we kind of go through the design of the project. But picturing the spaces that could house adult education, GED classes, visiting trade shows for different types of industries that come in and would like to set up shop and that we can bring our students into to have trade shows, for example. Breakout multi-purpose space to complement the community or district-wide training or overflow from this facility as it may be needed. Building 3 demolition, reconfiguration and expansion of the junior lot and stadium/stadium parking lot to improve pedestrian access to multiple nodes on campus. And also included in there would be a realignment of Colonel's Drive to mitigate the triangle of confusion up here at the entrance to the stadium in Arvin. I'm going to pause there before we move on to the next topic to see if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, gripes, complaints.
What's going to be when you demolish the building, what's going to be there? Or where's the juniors going to park at?
So that would be what we would be designing as part of this project. Yeah, so it's kind of, could be anywhere at this point, but it would, my thoughts is that we would be able to realign that and expand it so that it's closer access to the building without being remote, and we could actually expand to increase the number of students that can park in that spot, so we don't have as many off-site campus parking as we've had in the past.
All right.
But
Thank you.
until we realign the road, I can't tell you exactly what it's going to look like or where it's going to be at.
Brent, when you say spectator gym, is it still going to be like an extra gym, or is it going to, will it be the main one?
This is what I would call your new main high school gym. So this
Okay.
would be your spectator gym is where you would, if you were building a new high school, this is the gym that would be your main gym. And then the intent would be the existing gym could be repurposed for auxiliary gym purposes.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
One more thing.
Yes.
This would be built while Building 3, as it stands now, stays, and then once it is done, then Building 3 would be demolished.
Yes, or some variation of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Likely, there will be parts and pieces that will have to go so that we can open up some space for new construction. But that will definitely come to you all before, as part of the design process, is also the staging of construction and how we intend to build it.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, to accomplish the goals that we're talking about there, it's critical that we integrate a comprehensive, long-term kind of campus plan, which is a nice segue into the next part. The district-wide landscape and site improvement project is geared towards beautification and strategic comprehensive planning of all of our school sites, as well as campus improvements that come with our capital construction projects. Many times, a lot of our construction projects meet a specific need of that school at that time. For example, may need additional classrooms to handle capacity increase. We may need to renovate spaces that turns 30 years old. A lot of times, those capital construction projects are limited to meet that specific need at that specific time. And the way I've explained it before is it kind of stops at the sidewalk. So what this project does is takes that to the next level and kind of brings a comprehensive approach to integrate the capital construction projects that we have underway, as well as the ones we have coming down the road, into a comprehensive master plan. And I don't want to talk more at this time. I would like to introduce Element Design. Liz Piper and her team would like to come up and present their proposal for this project. We will be looking for an action item from the board to accept this proposal as presented tonight.
Welcome, ladies. It's nice to see you all again.
Thank you. All right. So thank you for letting us come here to say hello and introduce ourselves. We've met a few of you already. So we are with Element Design, and I'm Liz Piper. I'm a landscape architect and partner, and this is Ramona Fry, who is principal landscape architect and partner at Element. And I did pick the right button. And so we're just going to briefly introduce ourselves, let everyone know what we do, and then we'll get into actually talking about the project and how we have worked to sort of organize this. So we are landscape architecture, planning, and civil engineering. We are a small firm by design. We like to be that way, and we are based out of Lexington, Louisville, and we also have an office in Murray now. And a large part of what we do is public work, whether that's parks and recreation or educational facilities at all sizes and through all levels of education. And that's a huge part, I don't know, probably most of our work, really and truly.
Probably about 90% of our work is public
Yeah.
sector work, and it really focuses around public schools, parks and recreation projects, and kind of college and university campuses. Site design and master planning are probably the bulk of our work. We have a real passion for public schools as well. All of our kids are in public schools.
Yes, and I'm an Oldham County resident and have 3 kids in Oldham County schools, so this is pretty important to me as well.
Yeah, and I like to say I'm the only landscape architect I know that also has a degree in elementary education. So I have a real passion for it, in addition to not just the design, but really, kind of everything, all the thoughts that go into that, kind of based from that background too.
So just a real brief overview. We like to show pretty pictures, of course, of some of our work that we do. Again, this is what you're seeing here is largely actually it's all public work. Parks and school facilities, institutional, at all level. And just a real brief overview. I'm not going to go through all of this, just to give you an idea of sort of the, I can't read all of it, the depth of our experience in education at all levels. And some of our sort of capabilities, as well as parks, recreation, and sports planning and design. So with that, we will get into this project, and we have been working with your team to sort of organize how this very comprehensive site project is, and looking at the district as a whole and every single school campus and facility, and what we're going to do and help in sort of assessing that and working through this project. So right here is a sort of an overview, and you'll see there's the district-wide site improvement project, and that kind of has two things. There's the development plan and design standards, and there's some implementation projects. And we're going to sort of walk through those steps and how those are divided up. So that first sort of part of this larger project is the district development plan and design standards. And that's really focused on trying to assess sort of where the site of all these campuses, what improvements may need to be made, and looking towards standardizing it so that when you go on an Oldham County campus, you know it's Oldham County. Whenever you do one of these improvement projects, these building projects, that everyone knows what they need to do to make it look up to the Oldham County standards. And that's sort of the end result. And we'll kind of walk through each of these phases too in this section of the project. We have an assessment phase, a recommendations phase, and then a documentation phase. So part of that assessment phase is where we're going to go through every single campus, and we're going to look at the site, everything outside those building walls, and we're going to sort of inventory it, look at needs and what's going on there. We're going to work with you to develop some goals and objectives of what we're doing. We're also going to work with you to develop an assessment tool. There's an example here. A lot of times what we do with this type of work is we'll develop a project matrix with all the things that we're looking at. These things, it's weighted, and we go through and we score each site and each place that we visit and each issue that we are looking at, so that at the end we have some really a quantitative evaluation of what we looked at, and that will really help us prioritize what we do later on.
It also helps us make sure that we're looking at every campus and every
Yes.
school equally, so we're looking for
Mhm.
the same things like, you know, accessibility issues, sidewalks, grounds, quality of grounds, boundaries, and things like safety. So one of the things I'm passionate about, believe it or not, is school drop-off and pickup and those lines. And I mentioned the triangle of confusion, which I'm not familiar with personally. But, you know, we'll be looking at those kinds of issues too, like making sure that circulation is clear and that it's safer for people that are in cars, for kids that are on sidewalks, that type of thing.
Yeah. And what we're going to do is select a model site, so pick one campus, and use that one as sort of our initial site that we're going to work on, and we will work through and develop that assessment tool with that first site, make sure we get it right, and then that's what we use for every other campus to make sure it's all the same, that we're looking at all the same stuff. So that's the assessment phase when we're gathering all the information. And then we move on to the recommendations phase, and that's where we take all that information and we start trying our best to make sense of it. And you'll see here a couple different examples of phasing matrices and plans. So that's something that comes out of this, where we look at sort of the different needs, preliminary list of projects, potential pilot projects, and we start to sort of bring all of that together and start really looking at making some recommendations for phasing and what needs to be addressed. And that may turn out to be a little different than what we thought going into it, but that's the point of this phase, is working through all of those things together and figuring it out.
And one of the things we do initially is we sit with you and we listen to what you understand, what you know are issues or concerns or goals that you have. And then, we're going out and at the same time looking at all the sites and telling you what we kind of see from our perspective. And then we get together and collaborate and, develop that list of goals and objectives, and then eventually projects and suggestions and recommendations from that. It's a very collaborative process, back and forth.
Yep.
We'll meet a lot. And go over things a lot.
Yep.
So.
And then the final part of this this section of the project is the documentation phase, and that's where we are documenting all of this. We're developing, part of this is developing design standards, construction details, specifications, that sort of thing that every single project you can hand to off and say, hey, this is how we want our sites designed at Oldham County Schools. Every site, we want it like this. And that simplifies the process. It makes it easier. You're still going to have some variations here and there, just site specific, but that makes it a lot easier for any of your consultants in the future and for you to manage what things are going to look like, how they're going to be built, so it's exactly how you want it to be. And so that's part of this documentation phase, is us producing all of that so that at the end you have digital files of all of that you can pass off to the consultants on any building project. And I would say larger institutions, a lot of them have this. Set of design standards. So this would be a pretty typical thing that you would see, especially at like the larger university systems, that sort of thing. So related to this, back in the recommendations phase, there's a couple of things, a list of pilot projects and sort of the design standards and materials. From that, we're going to move over to the other part of this is an implementation project where we're going to take, select 3 or 4 of those projects from that initial list. And we are going to use those to start testing some of these standards, making sure we're getting things right, and preparing a few projects that are ready to be constructed and built. So you see some sort of, concrete example of work coming out of this. And that's a chance for us to really work through some of those details that we're working to figure out the standards on. So that's the implementation project, is actually developing construction drawings for 3 or 4 pilot projects that are related to site improvements throughout the district. And with that, thank you. And if you have any questions about any of that, we are happy to do our best to answer them.
I got a quick question. When we're talking about how it looks to be Oldham County, is there committees going to be formed for this? Like, is each school going to have some stakeholders of parents and the principal, like, per school that all group together? Or how will they make a decision on overall, like, will we have is that in the works to have a committee to help make some of those decisions?
So we look to you all to help us with with developing stakeholder committees and facilitation.
Okay.
But before, I'm sorry.
No,
But
that's exactly what I was getting ready to
we
say.
do a lot of master planning, a lot of different types of projects like this, and sometimes the facilitation is extremely public. There's public meetings, there's surveys, there's online surveys, there's we've had Zoom coordination meetings, open to everybody. Sometimes it is, we work with the kind of steering committee group, and they select stakeholder groups from each entity. So in this case, that might be the school. But we will, typically we would talk with a number of different folks with different concerns and different interests.
Yes, and I would follow up with that, saying also that we a workforce for the facilities department that would be involved with that, and then specifically on, depending on what type of project we're trying to undertake, we would also do that. A lot of that surveying that you saw in the initial parts of their design would be generated a lot from our input, from our feedback, from our schools, our stakeholders, our parents, our if need be, even our drivers around campus and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that we would have a big survey about how to design a curb, but that part, some of those types of things that are more of the aesthetic nature, absolutely.
Yeah, I just know, like,
and then there's another.
Goshen Elementary had some very small plans, and just like if they were getting involved with, this would be great. Just
Yes,
so
and
they
that kind of actually goes back to your earlier question today with the with some of the things that we're doing at the elementary schools. Designing what an elementary school is, an elementary school playground is in Oldham County, and coming up with that set of standards, we'll be able to answer questions for on down the road. So when we build a new elementary school, we don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel each time. We know that we want to have X, Y, and Z as a component of all elementary schools in Oldham County.
Okay, that's
and that
great.
helps make sure that all of your schools have equity, really, so that everybody is getting a similar, and not necessarily all have to look the same, but they have the same quality of a certain amenity, like a playground as an example.
Yes, no, I think that you put it the best when you all said that what we're looking for is at the end result of it is there to be no question that when you step on Oldham County Schools campus, you are on Oldham County Schools campus.
Okay.
But I would say, Allison, like if Goshen's PTO is getting ready to spend $25,000 on landscaping, I would not do that.
Yeah,
I would
hold on that.
So another part of this project would be the end result would be to give us a baseline to work from, and then we could start to bring our support organizations in to help maintain, continue to work down those lines. So we could, at some point in time, pass along, for example, a landscape catalog. So this is what these are the types of plants. These are the maintenance level of plants that we look for in at our entryways or in our parking lots or in planters around our that our school support organizations could dive into that book and then start to
Okay, great.
to do
I think that sounds awesome.
So, almost like a shopping cart kind of thing.
I love it.
That's a good question. We've kept our community council, which is our PTA, PTO presidents for each school, aware of keep them updated so that, to Ms. Hunley's point, just for communication purposes, and we need to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Is there going to be some guidelines developed? Let's say I'm at Centerfield, and I want to add this and this and this to my school since I'm the principal or what have you, and I'm not picking on you. To prevent that from happening, because I've got extra money, I want to do some landscaping, but we got a landscape group over here that's designing all the landscape. And sometimes bushes will go in that will block the view of traffic getting out, stuff like that. That's why I'm asking, is there going to be some type of guidelines on when all this stuff gets installed?
Yes, sir. That would be the exact intent of it, so that and I think some of those slides there, you could see sections of what a streetscape looks like and how that could be implemented at each school. And then that way, when a building modification or site improvement request comes in, we can reference a certain page on a document to shoot to the schools and say, here's the way we'd like to have that done at your school.
That's what I was looking for.
Do y'all do campus sports design with the whole thing?
Yep.
So it would have been very beneficial to have you a while back for this campus instead of piecemealing. I think you
A while
could
back, he
probably
means 50
put-
years ago.
How long?
50 years ago.
No, but if you pretend like you start from fresh and go with what we have or potentially will have, and then design an actual sports complex instead of piecemealing, I think having a plan would have been perfect. It would have really put OC campus on the forefront.
You know, we'll look at, to the greatest extent that we can, we'll look at that and what those resources are across the district, right? You know, maybe there's some opportunity too to share some resources, some fields, some practice fields, you know, different things like that. That'll be part of what we look at too. We've certainly done sports fields for high schools and colleges and sports complexes. This is E-Town, this is one of our projects. I think that's what was included it. But
That's an awesome complex.
thank you. It was 3 whole years of my life.
Well, thank you. Been there many
But it was so
times.
much fun to work on, and I mean, we did the master plan for it, and then did all the construction documents for it, and the construction administration, and I mean, we're just really, really passionate about those projects that really impact the community, and so we would very much be, you know, looking at things like that, sports facilities as well.
But Dr. Afford, aren't you very passionate? Isn't that what the field trip, the driving field trip was about? To show us how what it could be?
What could be.
Yeah. Okay. And Charlotte, I think you were part of that too.
Yes, and I would add to that every designer's dream is to start with a blank piece of paper and a blank slate.
Right.
But where architects, engineers, civil engineers, landscape architects all earn their keep is making what exists work with what is new, and the end result be just as nice.
And standards with what we can do and what we can maintain, and looking today and looking ahead.
I did ask him to do OC High's campus first, Joe.
I wish we'd do it before we
Art
get
Center.
everything. We need tennis court.
Calm down, Larry.
Art Center.
Tennis.
So,
Baseball field.
segue into the next project we'd like to talk about, that would actually start with a master planning process, similar to what we were just speaking about. And we would hope to start to implement some of those discoveries that we've kind of evaluated from the Element Design Group, is the evaluation of siting for the new Oldham County Arts Center. There is no board action on this evening, but I did want to get the board's initial input for locations so that when we do start the design process and the master planning of the site that this does ultimately land on, that we are going down the right direction that we're not spinning our wheels going down one path when the board would like to see us go down another path. So 3 potential sites that we're currently looking at is the obviously one would be replacement in the exact same footprint in the same area that it currently is on the corner of 146 and Floydsburg. The second site would be behind Crestwood Elementary School. This would be for our seasoned Oldham Countyans, the site of the previous Crestwood Elementary School, actually even further back in the site than that. I would recommend that we stay out of the footprint of the previous Crestwood Elementary School so that we don't find things we don't want to find. And then a third option would be the currently owned property that the board owns on Allen Lane. Each of these potential sites, I think some have pros, some have cons. I think that really there's a lot of input that we need, not just from the Board of Education tonight with your initial input on it, but Mr. Deeds and I talked about, that we would be bringing a demographic report to you that's put together with Mac and Michael Williams to kind of create a bubble diagram of our demographics that are served by the Oldham County Arts Center, both during the school day and in after school hours, which would help us generate kind of an area of influence that might influence some of these decisions as well. We would also take into account there some of the logistic considerations on where a potential site could affect traffic patterns, access from buses, and location to current bus routes and how that would impact during the day for our shuttle buses and stuff like that as well. So just wanted to float that out there. We will, since this is a real estate question to some degree, there will be an opportunity to discuss this amongst yourselves in executive session without saying one way or another right now, but I did want to see if there was any concerns with any of the directions that are potential at this point, or if we'd like to just let some of those demographic reports come into play in the transportation. Mr. Dodson, I'm sure you don't have any input on the matter, but.
Oh, yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Current location, I like that, but the second thing, what do we do with what we got now to keep it in operation? And the demographics, I have no problem with any of that, but what kind of time frame might we be looking at?
Right. I think that that's one of probably the biggest considerations on where to site this is one, the impact of current operations. If you were to put it in the same exact spot, then obviously there would be a time of displacement of the programs, all the programs that are in there, for the time for demolition and construction of the new facility. And then, I'm sorry, what was the second part of your question there?
The time frame it take to.
Right. So then, yeah, there would be a time frame consideration to allow that construction process to happen, where a different site or a adjacent site would give you the opportunity to move forward with design and construction while still occupying the current building.
See, the one thing I'd hate to see if it's in current location is if we put a hold, if we do it, then we're going to have to shut it down. If it's in the current location, now what do we do with all the efforts been put into Kaplan now? It's got it going and what have you. That's one of the things that concerns me
And
too.
Mr. Dodson, I appreciate that comment. That would certainly, we would not want to hinder the services, the experiences that our kids have. Appreciate that in terms of when it's ready to go to the project's ready to launch. We certainly want to, and I think that's part of our planning and how that would happen. But really just trying to do our due diligence, and we're just not quite there yet to keep our board informed of what that would look like.
So another point in bringing it up today is also just to kind of bring it to the horizon, bring it to the top of the list, if you will, of the construction report. I know this is something that you've asked about on one or two occasions, and we just want to let you know that this is kind of the initial steps to that. This is where we start to do our feasibility studies and start to get our input from our school community on that. And then eventually get our design teams working on shaping out what that would be and its final location. So we can leave it open-ended at this point. Like I said, there's not an action item on that. I just wanted to get ahead of y'all, get in front of y'all with that, so that you could start to have that rattling around in your head and give us some direction as we move forward.
What I'd share with the board, I'm really excited about is the actions that we've taken tonight, discussions that we've had tonight, and appreciate the discussions about all of these projects. But it gives us the balance when we talk about trying to have the best facilities within our board-approved strategic plan with academics, arts, and athletics. So certainly this takes the time it takes, but I'm really excited about moving forward so we can have the best experience for our students, for our staff. And this will continue to elevate our community as a whole and as we continue to move forward. So I appreciate the conversation, appreciate the work on this.
And Dr. Radford, to echo what you said earlier, I would like to take the opportunity to also thank my design team, the facilities department. We do have a lot going on, and we stay busy all day, every day. But it would not be possible without the help of J.D. Schneider's with us tonight, Kathy, Nancy, the team, but also our design consultants from our architecture and engineering firms. The reason we move forward with what is because of their efforts. So I want to thank them, and we've got a couple of them with us here tonight. So thank you all very much.
Thank you for your patience. Always good.
Thank you, Brent. Okay. Public expression, I don't think we had anybody signed up. Shane, will you just double check?
I am shocked.
Okay. I just want to note, because last time we got dinged for it, no one signed up. We do have public expression, and we did offer it, so just want to make sure that's on the record. Okay, your action items, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Consider approval of FY24 working budget.
Board members, questions, comments? Can I have a motion to approve? Made by Mr. Dodson, seconded by Mrs. Sheffer. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Next, sir.
Yes, consider approval of facility items as presented in your action items.
Okay, and these are two of the things that we just discussed. Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, can I have a motion to approve? Made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mrs. Clem. All those in favor? And that's 5-0. Information items, sir?
Yes, just information items as presented in your packet for, make the board. I'm sorry.
We did them both together. Yes, ma'am.
They were listed under 15B, so B1, B2 is under 15B.
Okay, executive session. Well, Mr. Dodson, would you like to read that?
Bring it up here.
Oh, sorry, is there
Do we
something
have
else?
to do anything else?
Can you do that information?
Information items or no?
No, that's just for us.
Oh, so we
That's
don't have to
for
talk
our
about it?
review. Oh, Carly?
So I have a comment real quick. I know it's late. So on the information items, the open records report, I know there's been a little bit of controversy over these. But, and just to be clear, everyone can request an open records request on anything you want. You have every right to do so. But I printed these out. I mean, one of them, someone's asking for the text messages between me and my husband. So just think about.
Actually, I was the one who submitted that, and I'd like to clarify, it very specifically does not ask for text messages between you and your husband.
It does.
It does
On
not
personal
ask for
devices,
text
but,
messages to either of you.
okay. It says either or, but, okay.
To either of you.
I'm just asking that we all work together and think about the value of what you ask for and whether that brings value to our students, our teachers, our district. And I'm not trying to cause controversy, but that's something that does not bring value to the hard work that we're doing up here. So you have every right to ask for whatever you want, anyone does, but let's have a little bit of common sense sometimes.
Thank you, Carly. Larry, could you read executive session?
Yeah, I can. We need to consider executive session pursuant to KRS 61.810, 1C, to discuss litigation, preparation, or defense the public disclosure of which could jeopardize the board's position, and KRS 61.810 1B, deliberation on the future acquisition or sale of property by the public agency, but only when publicly would be likely to affect the value of a specific piece of property to be acquired for the public use to be sold by a public agency.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I need a motion to go into executive session, made by Mrs. Sheffer, seconded by Mrs. Clem. All those in favor, and that's 5-0.